Hello, I'm Charles Hubble, your host and narrator for our podcast series, Deceived, the Moo Years. Deceived, the Moo Years is the true story of one young man's compelling, at times terrifying, former involvement with the martial arts cult Chung Moo Kwan.
The following story you are about to hear is true. It took place between 1980 and 1996. Most of the names have been changed. There are other versions of the story. My name is Russell Johnson, and this one is mine.
Deceived, the Moo Years, Episode 11, The Death of John Brice Maddox. Perhaps one of the biggest mysteries of the Moo was what happened the night that instructor John Brice Maddox died at the Moo compound in Naperville known as the Farm. It would be a topic of internet chat rooms, discussion boards, and private conversations. Oddly enough, it was the one topic that the Moo would not comment on. In 1991, Russell Johnson first heard the name of John Brice Maddox during a meeting with Assistant Illinois Attorney General Lynn Worley. Worley, who was suing the Moo schools for consumer fraud, told Russell that Maddox drowned in the pool at the farm. She was curious about the details of the death, but no one was talking. Worley searched public records and discovered that 2 years after John's death, someone got a moving violation using his driver's license.
I was traveling by Amtrak from Minnesota to Houston, Texas with a layover in Chicago, so I could meet with former Moo members and reporter Pam Zeckman. I also had a meeting scheduled with Assistant Illinois Attorney General Lynn Worley. Worley was a fearless advocate representing former Chung Moo Kwan members in its lawsuit for fraud and deceptive trade practices. The lawsuit had now entered its third year, and Worley had grown tired of the Moo's manipulation of the legal system. Worley told a reporter from Minneapolis City Pages that she was willing to drop the lawsuit against John C. Kim if he did one thing: jump from an 8-story building. Apparently, he had declined the offer. At the time, I was pursuing a lawsuit against the Moo for the injuries that had happened to my arms, and the meeting was an exchange of information. This would be the first time that I would hear the name John Brice Maddox, a name that would stick with me for the rest of my life.
According to the police report from the Will County, Illinois Sheriff's Office, John Maddox's wallet contained $10, numerous credit cards, but no driver's license. After that meeting at the Illinois Attorney General's office, Russell began to question what happened the night John Maddox died. Like Russell, John was an epileptic. Instructor John was an electrical engineer with a solid reputation and ethic. He had worked at Cape Canaveral and for GTE and had traveled around the world. He sought better health and thought martial arts would help.
Hearing that John was epileptic like myself, I felt a bond with this man that I'd never met before. There's certain things that happen to you when you have epilepsy that scar you from the inside.
Older than most students starting out, John Maddox eventually made 6th section, then honorary black belt, for his work at the farm and the herbal products businesses. It was said that John was being treated for his epilepsy by Master Kim. As this treatment continued, John's seizures got progressively worse. Allegedly, Master Kim had convinced John that he was better off without medication, that a cure was not only possible, but the Moo had used one for centuries. But first, John would have to earn it. There were reports that the dogs on the farm were treated better than John. Rumors about the epilepsy treatment included being restrained and even being locked inside a closet.
There were rumors about John's treatment that angered me. I felt like that could have been me. Everyone was told of Kim's powers to heal, but when it came to actually using it, it was said to be taking advantage of it. So what good is having the power if you can't use it?
John was said to be a brilliant and eccentric man, with no friends outside of the school. As John's treatment went on, his mental state began to deteriorate to the point that, at the end, he was working at Long John Silver's.
I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with working at Long John Silver's, but we are talking about a man who, according to others, had a genius-level IQ. I have recently been in contact with John's family, and they told me that he had suffered from mental health issues most of his life, and that his father had spent a great deal of money on treatment. Now imagine taking a man like John with his mental health issues and putting him under the control of a delusional psychopath like John C. Kim. and keeping him at a cult compound, you have the recipe for disaster.
On September 19, 1988, there was a birthday celebration for National Instructor Tim Woods, a giant of a man who was Master Kim's bodyguard. During the federal court trial, he could be seen walking behind Master Kim in the news footage. The farm was 10 acres along Book Road in South Naperville, Illinois. There were 2 houses. The greenhouse was built on the north side of the property. This building would have no windows along the north wall, in order to protect Master Kim from evil spirits from the north getting into his mind. It was built by instructors, and it took several months to finish it to Master Kim's liking, with opulent carpets, cabinets, and furnishings. Only the highest belts were allowed inside, and never through the front door. That honor was reserved exclusively for Master Kim's mother. The white clapboard house was there when the Moo purchased the property. It served as a commune for the regional instructors who lived there, and for the assistant regionals who wanted to. The cabana, a converted tool shed behind the White House, was used as Master Kim's command center. When he spoke to lower belts or held meetings, often belittling instructors with hours-long tirades for some small infraction. Or, when he saw the need to set a firmer line, Master Kim would administer the death test, grabbing a Moo by the throat, collapsing the windpipe, and choking him nearly to the point of no return. "You have a choice. Serve me or die. Which way is your mind?" Master Kim would tell the candidates seeking a better life. Those wanting just to be let go were cast out, never to return. Apple trees and landscaping camouflaged the compound that some would later refer to as a second cousin to Waco, a reference to the Branch Davidian cult compound in Waco, Texas. This was to be a training ground and headquarters for all Moos in the northern states. Barracks were provided in the renovated barn. Besides the cultish aspects of comings and goings, the bowing and thanking protocols never relaxed. In fact, away from public view, with no lower belts around, they were more rigid. The surrounding neighborhood caught on to multiple cars entering and leaving at odd hours, plus all the construction, which drew curiosity. The dogs stationed at the farm to keep the locals at bay probably helped publicize the Moo as much as any factor. A large German shepherd named Major liked to jump the front fence and chase joggers down the lane. One morning, he advanced into nibbling form, and the attorney he bit sued his owners. Word spread in the Naperville area. There's a commune on Book Road. According to newspaper reports, Naperville police had been investigating John C. Kim and his business, on and off, since 1982. Naperville Police Detective Michael Cross said, "We have done a lot of investigating and surveillance, but found no local offenses." Both the police department and the DuPage County Attorney's Office tried to get the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other federal agencies involved. On the farm, there was a large oval-shaped above-ground pool, about 5 feet deep maximum, with an extended deck between the houses and the pond. There was also a large man-made pond, about 20 feet deep, with an island in the middle where games would be played. The pool would be used for playing games, the kind that many would compare to fraternity hazing. Those who had played the game said that a near drowning was assured. John Maddox, who, according to a witness in the police report, had complained about having chest pains 1 month earlier, would be allowed to participate in the games that night. For the whirlpool game, instructors would line up in the water, at the edge of the pool. On Master Kim's command, they would start running around the edge, creating a human whirlpool. If you stumbled, you'd get sucked around in the current. When everyone was being whipped around in the current, Master Kim would grab a stick or another object and randomly attack. Instructors being attacked would get caught in the current or undertow. According to the police report, all the witnesses were in the pool from 11 p.m. until 1 a.m., when John was found underwater in a semi-sitting position, in approximately 3 feet of water. John was pulled from the pool. CPR was administered. At approximately 1:20 a.m., a call was placed to Edwards Hospital. Maddox was placed in a station wagon and driven to the hospital, with CPR administered along the way. John arrived at Edwards Hospital at approximately 1:35 a.m., 35 minutes from the time he was discovered floating in the pool. Emergency medical personnel attempted to resuscitate him. John Brice Maddox was pronounced dead at 2:14 a.m. on September 19, 1988. John was 44 years old. The Will County coroner stated the cause of death was acute myocardial infarction, secondary acute occlusion of the right coronary artery. In other words, a heart attack. According to the police report, all times were approximate because none of the witnesses wore a watch in the pool. One of the first questions one might ask is, why 911 was not called immediately after John was pulled from the pool? The 911 system was available in 1988.
Some students have been told that John C. Kim, the school's founder, has secret powers.
It was said that he had a lot of healing powers, that he could essentially heal anything.
There were various speculations as to what actually happened that night. This is one of them. All the instructors were playing games in the pool when John had a heart attack. He was pulled from the pool, where Master Kim brought him back to life. There was a delay in getting John to the hospital. He was said to be alive when the EMTs there took him, but the missing doctors at the hospital let John Maddox die. Later, instructors were told that because of Master Kim's care feelings, he prayed to a higher power to take John into heaven, Happy Mountain. Allegedly, in case the police showed up at the farm, Master Kim and the higher belts were evacuated from the property, some going to another house shared by 6 other instructors. One instructor remembered that they seemed more concerned with higher belts being questioned than about John Maddox dying. The first hour following a heart attack is known as the golden hour. It is a critical time because the heart muscle starts to die within 80 to 90 minutes after it stops getting blood. Within 6 hours, almost all the affected parts of the heart could be irreversibly damaged. So the faster normal blood flow is reestablished, the less damage to the heart. The other possibility of what happened that night was that after the first sign of trouble, when John was found, Master Kim fled immediately, leaving others to deal with it. Throughout the history of the Mu, students and instructors were told of Master Kim's power to heal, but it wasn't evident that night, nor at other times when it was most needed. A former female instructor from Minnesota was a full-fledged Mu black belt, one of the very few women ever to reach such a rank in the Mu without marrying into the title. After years of caring for the Kim family and being a close confidant, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Allegedly, Master Kim stood by and did nothing. He could not afford to be linked to her death, so he said that although he could cure her, he would not, because it would be taking advantage of his power. The man who claimed he was sent to earth to finish the work of Jesus was saying, "Verily, after all your work, you are not worthy." Years later, Russell Johnson would order a copy of the Will County Sheriff's Police Report. He shared the report with several former instructors. One instructor said that he was surprised by the time periods listed in the report. He was sure he had learned of John's death hours before the indicated time, but he was trying to remember 20 years back. He said that he got the most information on John's demise the next day. After that, everything was hushed up. In 1996, all of the witnesses listed on the police report would be sentenced to 5 years in prison for their role in the federal tax case. Since their release from prison, none of the witnesses have returned to the Mu organization. If the witnesses were to be questioned by the authorities today, they might have a different story to tell about what actually happened the night John Maddox died.
For John's family, his death has caused over 29 years of sadness and conflict with no closure. They knew nothing of the circumstances surrounding his death when they got to Chicago the day after he died. Someone told them about the farm where John had died. They drove out there and they knew that it was a compound of some kind. They said that the windows were all covered and there were vicious dogs all over, and they quickly became frightened and left without even getting out of the car. They stated, "We always known that something bad was going on, but didn't know what. Interestingly, two men somehow discovered where we were staying in Chicago and came to see us. They didn't say anything about him being in a cult, but seemed to be connected to him somehow. They spent most of our time telling us what a terrible family we were because we left John alone. It really makes me sad to read that he suffered at the hands of Kim. Do you or anyone you know have plans to talk to the witnesses who are now out of prison to see if they are willing to finally tell the truth about what happened that night?
Joe Zimhart has deprogrammed several former students.
The mind control in this organization has them believing that the quicker they pay it off, the more righteous or more direction they have within the organization, the more loyalty they have to Chung Mu Kwan ideas. And therefore, they generally drain their bank accounts quite rapidly.
In the late 1980s, cult expert Joe Zimhart was contacted by Tom Anderson, a Minnesota father who had become concerned about his son's obsessive involvement in the Chung Mu Kwan martial arts school. His son Jake was a successful young realtor. The father wanted Zimhart to speak with Jake after learning that Jake had signed a contract for the Mu's Olympic course training for $36,000 without being given a copy of the contract. The father saw the negative effects that participation in the Mu was having on his son's personality and business. Jake had already spent over $15,000 on lessons in just 3 years. His father saw him spending more and more time at the school, working for free, teaching classes, attending meetings, cleaning and maintaining the school, sleeping less and less. His son's rental property had been neglected, and criticism of the school had little effect on him. Jake's family decided to intervene and contacted Joe Zimhart. This would be Joe's first attempt to exit counsel an instructor out of the Mu.
We talked to some students who paid the schools as much as $50,000. They say some instructors asked them to sell their cars, deplete their savings, and give all their extra money to pay for lessons.
Exit counseling is designed to persuade an individual to leave the problematic group. It's different from deprogramming because it's a voluntary procedure. The member is treated respectfully, can leave at any time, and the decision to stay with the group or leave is exclusively the member's and will be recognized and accepted by the exit counselor. Joe Zimhart asked another cult specialist, Pat, to assist him in the intervention. The two had worked together in the past, and Joe knew Pat's presence would enhance the session with Jake. The two flew to Minnesota and were met at the airport by Jake's father, sister, and mother. They accompanied the men to their hotel, where they would spend several hours strategizing for the meeting with Jake. The following day, Jake's father arranged to meet with his son to discuss his concerns over the financial commitment to the Mu. Jake was unaware that Joe and Pat would be there. The meeting took place at his father's house. Jake was apprehensive at first when his father introduced them. Jake knew that he was there to discuss the $36,000 contract that he signed with the Mu. The discussion started over coffee. His father explained that the contract was only part of the reason that he invited Joe and Pat. He told Jake that they knew a lot about cults. Upon hearing this, Jake flinched. Having had a strong bond with his father, he reluctantly agreed to stay and hear them out. Jake insisted he was not in a cult and told his father that hiring these men was a waste of money. According to Zimhart, at this stage of an intervention, this attitude is predictable. To begin the discussion, they played the film The Wave, a 1981 after-school special based on a true story. In 1967, The Third Wave was a classroom social experiment created by high school history teacher Ron Jones. Jones found it difficult in his contemporary world history class to explain how the German people could accept the actions of the Nazis during the Second World War. He decided to create a social movement as a demonstration of the appeal of fascism. Over the course of 5 days, Jones conducted a series of exercises in his classroom emphasizing discipline and community, modeling certain characteristics of the Nazi movement. The movement grew outside his class and began to number in the hundreds. Jones began to feel that it had spiraled out of control. He convinced the students to attend a rally where he claimed the announcement of a third-wave presidential candidate would be televised. In an auditorium, Jones ordered that the television sets be turned on, and for the next few minutes, the sets showed nothing but a blank field of white. Minutes went by, still nothing on the screen. Anticipation, anxiety, and confusion filled the auditorium. Someone stood up and shouted, "There isn't any leader, is there?" Everyone turned in shock. Jones yelled out, "Yes, there is. There is your leader." He turned, pointed toward the curtain as it opened, revealing a 1939 film clip of Hitler at a Nazi rally.
There is no leader, is there?
Yes, there is. There's your leader.
Wird mehr gefordert als von den Millionen der übrigen Volksgenossen. Für sie genügt nicht die bloße Ablegung des Bekenntnisses, ich glaube, sondern der Spur, ich kämpfe.
Now listen carefully. There is no national youth movement. You thought you were so special, better than everyone outside this room. You traded your freedom for the luxury of feeling superior. You accepted the group's will over your own convictions, no matter who you hurt. Oh, you thought you were just going along for the ride, that you could walk away at any moment. But where were you heading? How far would you have gone? Take a look at your future.
Jones told the group of students that if our experiment has been successful, you will have learned that we are all responsible for our own actions, and that you must always question what you do rather than blindly follow a leader, and that for the rest of your lives, you will never allow a group's will to usurp your individual rights. The similarities between the Mu and the Third Wave were striking. There was no champion of all Asia. There was no such thing as the Asian Chungmu headquarters. The Mu believed that they were the elite, that they alone taught the only true martial art. They believed they were superior. They gave up their careers and personal freedom, lost time with family. They chose to accept the group's will over their own will that was telling them all along that something was wrong. Where were they heading? And how far would they have gone to prove loyalty to John C. Kim? Jake would listen to their explanations about the parallels between the Mu and the Wave, which included the nature of hypnosis and suggestibility in believing what an authority figure suggested. Jake made a few comments and asked a few questions, but remained noncommittal. Hours had gone by, and Jake showed no change in his stance about whether the Mu was a cult. As Jake was leaving, he took Joe aside and said that he might bring a friend by to hear what Joe had told him. Cautiously, Joe agreed. At this point, they were optimistic that Jake had not rejected the discussion. Later that evening, Jake showed up at Joe's hotel with another Mu instructor, Eric. He asked that Joe and Pat share all of the information that they shared with him and not leave a thing out. Joe was apprehensive about letting the two in the hotel room. The Mu had a long history of assaulting critics. Eric sat silently as the VCR was set up to show the Wave and several other videos. The four of them settled down for the next few hours, going through the information before taking a break for refreshments. Eric, a Scandinavian national, immigrated to the United States. He discovered the Mu schools, like many others, going through the Yellow Pages. Within 2 years, Eric had reached black belt, and along with that, he was indebted to the Mu for thousands of dollars. As the discussion went on, Eric said very little, but appeared less of a threat to Joe and Pat. They took a break for food. Before leaving to the restaurant, Eric asked Joe, "Why did you let me inside? Weren't you afraid that I would hurt you?" Joe was relying on the fact that a martial artist might not initiate a fight. Joe was right about Eric, but other Mu instructors were unpredictable and would do anything that Master Kim asked. Eric paced around the room. When he came there, he was certain that no one could talk him away from the moo. Within a few hours, his whole life had been changed. Eric stated, "It's hard to believe I will never go back to school." Eric told Joe and Pat that he was angry with them at first for dissuading Jake from remaining loyal to the moo. He would have hurt them if his higher belts ordered it. During the session, Joe would warn them about the phenomenon known as floating. Floating is common to newly exited cult members and to people who walk away from their cults, whether they have clear reasons to leave or not. Much of the bonding with a cult system is emotional, and this bond can fulfill many of our basic human needs for family, friendship, and a purpose in life. Those intense emotional ties can be difficult to replace at first, if ever, to that degree. Intellectual confusion can be the result of emotional confusion, when feelings about the good times in the cult family arise. This can happen, especially if the former member is depressed or otherwise troubled with career or relationships. Once Eric returned to his home, he remained quiet about his involvement with the moo. He moved in with his girlfriend and found a job and went on with his life. 1 month later, Jake would help Joe successfully exit another instructor, Glenn, out of the moo. In total, Joe would help 5 instructors exit the moo during this time period.
Next week on Deceive the Mooyers, I find myself hiding in the darkness with no clue on how I got there.
Deceive the Mooyers is a production of Deja Moo, LLC. Recorded and produced by Alive and Social Podcast Network. Russell Johnson, producer and writer. Charles Hubble, host and narrator. David Bruskin, editor. Russ Meyer, co-writer and editor. Aaron Troe, sound producer. Brian Price, audio editor.
Wyatt Sarber, recording engineer and editor.
Woon Tae Ryu is our advisor in South Korea. Authentic is our advertising representative. Deceive the Mooyers is represented by Young Entertainment Law. The Deceived production crew would like to thank Joe Smith, author of Herding the Moo. Herding the Moo is available on Amazon.com.